Good evening, Southside. It's Lek. I'm going to be doing this. I'm going to be doing it tonight and next Wednesday. Then after that, it'll be in person, and that will be wonderful. It won't be me who's in charge of that, but that will be exciting. It'll be really wonderful to start seeing people in person more often and that sort of stuff. But we still have this today and next week. Anyway, first thing we want to do is we want to talk about the Newcombs. We want to just make sure, I'm sure all of you are aware, all of you have seen that a good portion, I think perhaps all of their house burned down, and that's something we need to keep in prayer, but we also need to be doing stuff. And so Southside, keep Mariah in the loop. Dad, Jess Wall, and Rusty Miller are both people that you can contact if you have anything to help. There's the sizes that are going around. I'm sure you can get them on the Facebook page, or yeah, you can get them on the Facebook page, and we'll be able to direct you in any way you want to help them out. That's definitely the biggest thing we want to do. And let's go ahead and say a prayer, not just for them, but for this little study that we're going to have. All right. Awesome, God, we ask that you just be with the Newcombs, God. We just ask that you just give them some peace in this time, God, that you give them just your joy, God, that you make them just feel what you want them to feel, and just make them to where they can get through this time and just glorify you. We ask that you just make your name known in this situation, and just make it to where you, Abba Father, are seen as a caretaker, that you're a healer, God. We ask that you heal their hearts and everything that needs to be healed in this situation, God. We ask that you just feed us today, God. Just make it to where we are fed through your word. We ask this in your awesome, powerful name. Amen. So I had an idea of what I wanted to do, and I'm still going to hit that at the very end, but I do believe that we're going to just talk about what it means to be a friend in the time of need, right? Obviously, this pertains just one-to-one when we talk about the Newcombs and being with those four. I mean, we definitely can hit that, but you know, being 2020, we've got lots of opportunities just to be a friend in need, right? To show the world that, as Mike talked about last week, or on Sunday, to show the world God's love via loving each other, right? And that's definitely a theme that we're going to have today, and that sort of thing. But there's also going to be tons of other opportunities. I mean, we see the hurricane hitting South Texas. I'm sure several of you have family. We see that pretty soon there's going to be an election, and we all know somebody who's going to be distraught either way, right? We all know somebody who will be distraught if Trump wins or if Biden wins. We just know that those things are going to happen. So we are in a time where we're seeing just terrific need, and we need to know what it means to be a friend in a time of need. And I know that I'm most likely preaching to the choir here. If my parents' telephone is any indication of how much people are doing for the Newcombs specifically, then as a church, we're doing a great job. And not just as a church, other people who used to be members of the church, I've heard them calling, and you know, we are doing well and stuff. And so I'm sure this is just preaching to the choir or whatever, but we're gonna take a chance. And my light went out. There it is. Alright, trying out some new technology. I'm going to have to use all this when I teach, so it's good practice. Right, and so we see in the beginning of Job, we see a example of excellent friendship. Towards the middle and end, right, if you're reading, if you're caught up day to day, you've seen that their friendship ability doesn't do so well, right? It's not, they don't sustain it, but they do a great job in the beginning, and that's what we're going to talk about, right? You'll definitely notice they've got bad theology, these friends, but that is most likely true of all the friends that you have anyway, right? Most, in some way, there's theology where most people are lacking, and probably not as big as Job's friends, right? We see some big problems there. But anyway, that's getting way ahead of ourselves. We'll start with the setup. You know the setup. I'm not telling you anything new, but I want to make sure that we hit it right. So we'll start, and well, we'll just go through Job and then we'll read the main part. We'll do the setup first, right? So Job starts with, starts talking about Job's life, and Job had a very blessed life, right? Hashtag blessed. He had lots of livestock, right? We're going to talk a lot about livestock in a bit. He had lots of worldly possessions. He had a large family, right? He was the greatest man among all the people of the East, right? He's this patriarch in what people say it's in Iraq, right? That's where he's living, right? And so God and Satan are talking, right? So we're taken from that to God and Satan, and God and Satan are talking, and Satan's like, hey, everybody's terrible. God's like, what about this dude? And Satan's like, well, he's super blessed, right? If your hand wasn't, if you haven't placed a hedge around him, his household and everything he owns, right? That, if you strike everything he owns, he will surely curse you to your face, right? And so the Satan here is called the Satan. I forget the word in Hebrew, but it's the prosecutor, right? I forget, Satan is how you pronounce it, something like that. But so we see this courtroom of sorts, and Job, in most courtrooms, the person on trial is on trial for something they did in the past, right? But Job is not on trial for something he did. It's for his heart, right? And I think that's interesting to note. We know just by the way the wording is that he is not on trial for his past, that God considers him righteous, right? No one else on earth is like him, a man of perfect integrity who fears God and turns away from evil, right? He's just this incredible man, right? And and if God's saying that he has perfect integrity and fears God and turns away from evil, we can be sure that this dude is legit, right? He is definitely just nailing it, right? And so his trial is not about his past. And I think that's important to note. Well, it's vital to note for what goes on in the rest of Job, right? Job is just full of talking about his past. And so we need to know that. for that, and for the way the friends see it, right? Their theology on this is wrong, but the friends nail what they did. Give me a second. All right, so let's hit the reading. Job 2:11 through 13. That's what we're going to read if you want to turn with me. Sorry guys, just checking to make sure my video was still recording, right? Anyway, so Job 2:11 to 13. Now, when Job's three friends, Eliphaz the Temanite, Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathite, heard about all this adversity that had happened to him, each of them came from his home, and they met together to go and sympathize with him and comfort him. When they looked from a distance, they could barely recognize him. They wept aloud, and each man tore his robe and threw his dust into the air and on his head. Then they sat on the ground with him 7 days and nights, but no one spoke a word to him because they saw that his suffering was very intense. All right, so we're going to break down some of the things they did and some of the things you can do, specifically with the Newcombs right now, but also just right with your family members that might be suffering from the hurricane or through any sort of adversity, right? How to be a friend in need. We're going to look at it in a lot of different lenses and try to look at it through the lens of Christ in a few instances, right? But we're going to start with the very beginning, 2:11. Now, when Job's three friends named heard about the adversities that had happened to him, right? This is an obvious one. I think that's that we all know that we need to be connected to each other, right? Like that was certainly Mike's big part of his message, and we need to hear, right? We need to hear that. I believe it's obvious, right? We know for sure that hearing is necessary to being a good friend, right? This communication, this line of communication is necessary, but it's not always obvious, right? We have people that we revere, right? We have John, right? The beloved, right? Peter, James, they just have this evidence of them not really hearing, right? Like I think this is incredible to me whenever I thought about it, you know, right? There's just lots of evidence of, you know, them not hearing, right? I want to just take you through it, right? Matthew 16, 21. From that time, Jesus began to show his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things from the elders and chief priests and scribes and be killed and be raised the third day, right? So he's saying this many times, right? Matthew 17, 22 and 23, right? Now, while they were staying in Galilee, Jesus said to them, the Son of Man, who they know is Jesus, right? They know Jesus is talking. Anyway, is about to be betrayed into the hands of men, and they will kill him. And the third day he will be raised up. And they were exceedingly sorrowful. Matthew 20:17. We'll just hit the well, 17 through 19. Now Jesus was going up to Jerusalem, right? This is just right there. Took the 12 disciples aside on the road and said to them, "Behold, we are going up to Jerusalem. The Son of Man will be betrayed to the chief priests and to the scribes, and they will condemn him to death and deliver him to the Gentiles to mock him and to scourge and to crucify. And on the third day he will rise again." Right? Matthew 26:32. "But after I have risen, I will go ahead of you into Galilee." Right? So we see over and over again, and this is just Matthew, right? I could do the same thing with Mark and Luke and John, right? That there's just lots and lots of evidence that Jesus said, "Hey, I'm going to die, and then on the third day, I'm going to rise again." And then the most frustrating moment you have with these young kids, right, is John 29, right? Just frustrating as can be. Where is it? "For they did not," talking about the disciples, right? "For they did not yet understand the scripture that he must rise from the dead." Jesus specifically told them over and over again, right? 3 times specifically here, and then one more time that he just said, yeah. From that time he began to show, right? So it was an over and over thing. And so there's this thing where I don't think the disciples believed it, or they thought it was metaphorical, right? They didn't quite understand it. And I think we need to truly hear our friends, right? We need to truly hear our brothers and sisters. On this, I have a big question I would love for you to leave comments on, and to find out if your friends or whatever are going through something, the obvious place to find out is Facebook. Now, there's lots of, or Twitter, right? But for the most part, Facebook. And there's lots of ways in which we can discuss, right, is Facebook good or bad? But I really want to know, what does it mean to be Christ-like on Facebook or Twitter, right? Like, obviously, when we first got on Facebook, when we first got on Twitter, we had this mental feeling of accomplishment because we were hearing, right? We did know that we were doing something good. But now I don't know how often we are truly hearing each other on Facebook or Twitter. I don't have Twitter, so I don't really know, but I'm sure it's the same. What does it mean to be Christ-like on Facebook, right? In what way do we hear each other best? That sort of thing. Just would love to see some input on that. I don't have an answer for you, and we don't have time for that. I'm only 1 point through a 7 point